What's up, everybody, and welcome into a solo episode of Goal Line Dynasty. Today, I'm going to be doing an underdog best ball draft for you guys. I know we haven't done one of these on the channel, but I do these all the time, and I figured, you know what, you might as well get on here, show you guys how it's done. I don't claim to be an expert at best ball, but I do think I know a thing or two about fantasy football. So, sharing my screen here, looks like draft is starting in 30 seconds, and we are picking from the 11 spot. Now, I will say this. Usually, when I'm picking at either 11 or 12, I do like to go wide receiver heavy. But with that being said, if a guy like Eckler, or I would even consider Bijan Robinson, if one of those two guys falls to me at 111, I am going to be pretty tempted to pull the trigger on that. So we will see where that ends up. But the draft is officially underway. I'm assuming these first two picks are going to be Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. That does seem pretty automatic these days, but let's see here. All right, come on, absolute 1310. You can do it. How hard of a pick could it be at number one? Yep, there he goes. So Justin Jefferson goes number one overall there. Keep the draft board up here so you guys can see it a little bit better. Imagining this next one goes Jamar Chase, and it was Jamar Chase. Now, the interesting thing here is Tyreek Hill has officially overtaken Christian McCaffrey in ADP on these best ball drafts, and he continues to fall, Christian McCaffrey does, because people are really going wide receiver heavy at the start of these best ball drafts this year. And I kind of think that trend is going to follow us into August for redraft. But you see Tyreek Hill goes number 3, then Cooper Kupp, Christian McCaffrey finally goes at 105. Stephon Diggs goes at 106, which is a little surprising. A couple of guys I would take over him, especially with the quote-unquote concerns from Sean McDermott about Diggs not showing up to mandatory camp earlier today. Travis Kelce goes 107. A.J. Brown goes 18. Now, it seems like we're going to be in a position to grab Austin Eckler or Bijan Robinson. So we'll see which receivers are still there. But as it stands right now, if one of those two guys falls to me at 111, it's going to be really hard for me to say no. And Eckler just went at 109. He was the guy that I would have leaned over Bijan Robinson. But I am projecting big things for Bijan this year. I actually just started working on my, yearly projections, and Bijan's looking pretty good. Not quite 300 fantasy points projected in PPR leagues, but really damn close. I think I got him at like 297 or 296, something like that. So we are now up, and CeeDee Lamb just went. So do we want to go with Bijan Robinson, take our running back, or do we want to go with one of the wide receivers? I know I said I do like going wide receiver in this late half here, but I really don't. I think Bijan, Christian McCaffrey, and Austin Eckler all need to go in the first round. So I'm going to take Bijan Robinson here, and I will have one of these wide receivers available to me at pick 202. So we missed out on Devontae Adams. We missed out on Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I'm perfectly content to get Garrett Wilson, team him up with Bijan Robinson. If this were the start of a dynasty squad, I would be absolutely thrilled. But even for best ball, I'm going to be pretty excited about Bijan Robinson and Garrett Wilson. I think we're all expecting big things for both of these players this year, right? Garrett Wilson, I haven't had a chance to project out the New York Jets, but I mean, having over 1,100 yards as a rookie, not a big nose for finding the end zone as a rookie, but also look who was throwing him the ball. I think he's going to improve across the board. And I have seen some people call Garrett Wilson the dark horse candidate to be the overall wide receiver 1 in 2023. Now, I don't necessarily think I believe that, but it's really possible for him to finish in the top 5 with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball. Let's see what else we got on the board. T. Higgins goes number 17 overall. A little bit earlier than I would expect to see him, but no arguments for me. T. Higgins could have a massive year. I think Joe Burrow is going to have the best year so far of his young career. And, for both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, if both of them can stay healthy, I mean, Joe Burrow could find himself throwing for over 5,000 yards in 2023. He could do that because that's how talented those two receivers are, and that's how talented he is. So I really don't mind taking T. Higgins a little bit ahead of his ADP there at pick 17 overall. We see Pat Mahomes, first quarterback off the board at 18. That's about typical. Now we got a run on the running backs. Surprisingly, Lamar Jackson goes before Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. I think Lamar Jackson is going to rebound this year, but I don't think I'm bold enough to take him over Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. I'm actually kind of getting on board where unless Pat Mahomes falls to me or I have maybe pick 212, I'm probably not taking a quarterback in round 2. I think the ADP for quarterbacks is going to continue trending down as we get towards, closer to August. And when you're doing these underdog drafts at this point in the offseason, you want to be ahead of the ADP because, obviously you want to beat the guys that are in your room, but later on down the season, once you make the tournament, you want to make sure that you have the team to beat, right? And the only way you're going to do that is if you're ahead on the ADP. So, quarterbacks early round 3, maybe mid round 3. This is about where I'm comfortable taking them. Looks like everybody else got the memo with Hurts and Allen still there. I think this is about the time where I would be comfortable pulling the trigger on either of these guys. And you can see Josh Allen goes right there. I would imagine Hurts goes at some point in the next few. Now I noticed this guy, the one who took Lamar Jackson, he did take Mark Andrews as well. Obviously, that is a very popular tactic, is to do a stack. And I think if you are going to do a stack with any of these quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Diggs, Lamar and Mark Andrews, you got Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce, which is pretty damn good. Or if you can get Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. I guess I'll never fault anyone for reaching a little bit past the ADP to complete a stack like that because, spike weeks in best ball is what wins you weeks, right? That's what's going to make you into the tournament in the end. But okay, so Jalen Hurts is gone. Tony Pollard just went. Ramondre Stevenson went before Tony Pollard. That's interesting. I don't think I agree with that. I would say about Ramondre Stevenson, I wouldn't be surprised to see them bring in one of the veterans like Leonard Fournette, Zeke Elliott, maybe Kareem Hunt. Not that any of those guys are really going to, put a huge damper on Ramondre Stevenson's upside. But I think people are overreacting to the release of James Robinson. He was never going to factor in that much anyway. So we are up in 3 picks here. And DK Metcalf, Breece Hall, Calvin Ridley, top guys on the board. Now, Amari Cooper is tempting to me if he falls. I do want some more receivers. I like building out my receiver room as early as possible. But I am a really big believer in Najee Harris, and I'm a big believer in Jahmyr Gibbs. And honestly, I think I would take either one of those guys over the receivers that are on the board right now, because there's a few receivers where I'm content with taking as my wide receiver 2. And I'm assuming this guy, that picks 312 and 41, he's already got 2 receivers. I don't think he's going to take 2 more back-to-back here. So I'm going to take my choice at running back. I am going to take Najee Harris here. Let's see what happens. I'm hoping to get either Keenan Allen or DeAndre Hopkins. So, yeah, and he goes Calvin Ridley and then Travis Etienne. So Keenan Allen probably would have been my pick there at 35, right, if I went wide receiver. Najee Harris obviously was my pick at 35. I'm pretty excited to get both of those guys on the turn here. I think this start, everyone's a different bye week. Bijan and Najee Harris, they should both be top 10 at worst running backs this year, right? Garrett Wilson, we already talked about him. And then Keenan Allen, I know he's getting older, but, man, he's not slowing down. Obviously, health is the biggest concern for him. But when you get to go out and be the wide receiver 1 for Justin Herbert, what do I have to complain about, right? I'm not worried about Quentin Johnston. I'm not worried about Mike Williams because Keenan Allen proves time and time again that he is the guy that Justin Herbert leans on, and he's going to continue to do that in 2023. Speaking of Mike Williams, there he goes. You see Mike Williams, he has his spike weeks for sure. There's upside there in best ball for sure, but I would rather wait a couple of rounds and take a flyer on a guy like Gabe Davis, someone who's still tied to a good quarterback, but does have those spike weeks and comes at a discount, 2 or 3 rounds later. So Gabe Davis is a guy that I do look for. I think his ADP is like round 6 or round 7. And that's about where I start to consider him depending on what else is on the board. So Mike Williams is not a guy you'll ever see me go for in the early to mid fourth round. Just not something I typically agree with. So Jahmyr Gibbs finally went. It's about time. Christian Watson, Drake London, Jerry Jeudy. It is interesting that Christian Watson goes before Drake London and Jerry Jeudy in a lot of these drafts. I know Watson had some spike weeks last year, but most of his production came over a 5-game span. And Romeo Doubs was out. Aaron Rodgers was throwing the ball. Like, I don't know. There's just going to be a lot of mouths to feed in Green Bay, and I don't necessarily know if Jordan Love is the guy to evenly distribute all of those. Terry McLaurin goes 45. I do like that pick. I do like taking Terry McLaurin in the late 4th round. I'm actually a really big believer in Sam Howell. So anyone that he's thrown to this year, McLaurin, Dotson, maybe even if you need a late round flyer, and Curtis Samuel, I don't mind it. I really don't. So I'm seeing we are up in 8 picks. Justin Herbert is still there. Justin Fields is still there. I would be tempted to take one of those 2 quarterbacks if they are there, just because it would be kind of nice to have a semi-elite quarterback for this squad. But also, I'm looking at the board. I'm a big believer in Miles Sanders. I think Michael Pittman's going to have a decent year. Chris Godwin is always awesome, right? I know Baker Mayfield's throwing in the ball, but who cares? I know Baker Mayfield just really isn't that good, but we got to stop pretending like Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are just going to evaporate. Like look at this. Mike Evans is all the way down here. Mike Evans should not be, a late 6th round ADP. That seems a little ridiculous to me. I think we're way too afraid of what Baker Mayfield's going to do to that team. So Justin Fields goes. Not surprised. I wouldn't expect Justin Fields to make it to me at pick 59. There goes Chris Godwin. That makes sense. I think Justin Herbert's going to be my pick if he makes it, just because I really wouldn't mind having the stack of Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen. It's kind of like, you miss out on Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, or Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I could settle for Herbert and Keenan Allen. Not nearly as good, but also not nearly as expensive. So we were up in 1 pick. Justin Herbert is still there. I don't have a lot of Justin Herbert in any of my drafts. I think I have about 30, give or take, underdog teams at this point in the offseason, and my exposure to Justin Herbert is pretty low. So I don't mind taking him here. Gives me some diversity for the portfolio. I mentioned Mike Evans shouldn't be there. He really shouldn't. I wouldn't mind taking him as my wide receiver 3 because – he's had nothing but 1,000-yard seasons for his entire career. Like, it's been 9 or 10 seasons in a row. Do we really think Baker Mayfield's going to be the thing to ruin it? Definitely could be the case, but I don't know if it will. You know what? I'm going to take Miles Sanders. I'm doing a 180 here. I'm staying away from the wide receivers. I don't mind this zone of wide receivers. I know a lot of people think this is the wide receiver dead zone, but that's the thing. In a quote-unquote dead zone, it's anyone's guess as to who's going to come out on top. So I'll just take whichever one of them falls to me at the end of round 7. I guess we're a little bit farther down. We'll probably be looking at, Quentin Johnson, Rashad Bateman, Elijah Moore. But you know what? We can't go back now. It's fine. Miles Sanders is going to have himself a solid year in Carolina. Chuba Hubbard's really not going to take a ton of workload away from him. And Miles Sanders signed there because Carolina wants to use him, and they want to use him a lot. And they have Bryce Young, a rookie quarterback. What do teams with rookie quarterbacks do? They run the ball a lot, and they make safe throws. And, don't forget, Miles Sanders, as a rookie, he had over 60 targets in Philadelphia. And then it just kind of dropped off the face of the planet. They just stopped using him less and less. And I know people could argue, well, yeah, that's because he was less and less efficient, which is true. But the point I'm trying to make is that we've seen him do it once, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him do it again. Miles Sanders is one of my favorite guys to take a flyer on in the 6th round at the running back position, or just in the 6th round in general, because he could have a really big year. This could be his biggest workload that he's ever had as a professional football player. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens there. Now, usually when I go early running backs like this, 3 in the first 6 rounds, I'm not going to leave this draft with more than 4, maybe 5 running backs. I'm probably leaning 4, unless someone falls to me that shouldn't fall. But it's just, if you're going to go running backs early, you don't overdraft the rest of the position, right? Like if you have Bijan Robinson, Najee Harris, and Miles Sanders on your team, you don't need to grab 3 or 4 depth guys, because these are going to be the guys that you're using pretty much every week. I know the running back position is kind of volatile, and it's anyone's guess. Najee Harris goes down, you got Jalen Warren. If Miles Sanders goes down, you get Chuba Hubbard. Bijan goes down. Tyler Algier is actually a pretty damn good handcuff there. But the guys that draft 0 RB and they only take late round running backs, they bank on injuries, and they bank on guessing correctly what injuries are going to occur, right? Couldn't be me. I very rarely do I build teams that don't have at least 2 running backs through the first 6 rounds. Maybe sometimes I'll push it to round 7, but it's just, I don't like building my teams like that. I know the move is to go wide receiver early this year, and it is a good move. It is. But while everyone's going to zig, I'm going to zag. I'll take my top projected running backs. So we got a little run on wide receivers. These are kind of the guys that I was hoping would fall to me. Now, I did mention Gabe Davis is a guy that I frequently look at in round 6 or round 7. He's up in – his ADP is in 4. We're up in 6. That's a guy I would look out for here. I'd be fine with taking him as my wide receiver 3. Nice boom-bust weekly option there. I also wouldn't mind Elijah Moore. Michael Thomas could finally, Michael Thomas would probably give me 3 or 4 good games if we're lucky before he gets injured, but he's bound to have a healthy year, right? He's due. So I know some of you may be thinking, well, you could have gotten Dalvin Cook, you could have got Cam Akers instead of Miles Sanders, and you could have got your wide receiver. And it's true, but Cam Akers scares me. That injury that he had, the Achilles, we've seen this story before. You can have a few spike weeks there, especially at the end of 2022, but I don't think he's going to last throughout the entire 2023 season. I don't think the Rams are going to lean on their running game that much either. All right, so we are up. Quentin Johnson is still there. I took Justin Herbert. I have Keenan Allen. Might not be the worst idea to just complete the stack. So, pretty much every other catch that's going to happen in Los Angeles is going to pay dividends for my team. Yeah, you know what? Let's do that. I don't love this. I don't love that Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson are my wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3. I would prefer Quentin Johnson to be my wide receiver 4, but that's the build we went with. We're going to have to live with those consequences, and maybe we'll get lucky. I'm thinking Elijah Moore or Michael Thomas on the way back. I think those are really my only 2 options here. Like I said, I'm not going to take any more early running backs. I'm not a believer in Cortland Sutton. I like Zay Flowers, but I like him for Dynasty. I don't like him for redraft. I don't really think he's going to have a massive rookie year. Okay, so David Montgomery, Jameson Williams goes. Jameson Williams is a guy that I would have actually considered here as well. Downside, though, is he suspended the first 6 games, and I have 2 bye weeks through week 5, right? So that's kind of hurtful. Elijah Moore, I want to be my pick here, but I just got done complaining about my week 5 buys. So I'm going to take Michael Thomas. It's a huge risk reward, but at pick 86 overall, I mean, what kind of risk are you actually taking there? It's not that bad. See, and this is a squad I can get used to this squad. I'm not upset with it whatsoever. Because if I get health from Michael Thomas, he is probably at this point, a top 18 to top 20 wide receiver. Garrett Wilson and Keenan Allen stay healthy for me. I mean, they're both top 10. I know some people will argue with me on Keenan Allen, calling him a top 10 wide receiver. But when he's healthy, he is a top 10 wide receiver. And here's my thing with best ball. You gotta be risky, right? You are playing against hundreds of thousands of other people, right? Yeah, you can make the tournament, but the goal is not to just make the tournament. The goal is to win the tournament, right? Win the prize pool. I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to say I'm going to make you rich. I'm not. I'm going to make myself rich. And I'm recording myself, making myself rich, right? But no, you got to be risky in best ball. You have to, or else you're not, you cannot win. You cannot win the entire thing. You cannot beat out hundreds of thousands of other people by playing it safe and drafting guys that you know are going to do okay. You need to go for guys that you think could completely blow the roof off of this season. Because if you hit from like round 8 on, if you can hit on even 3 guys, if you can hit on 3 guys that other people are not expecting, that's a massive win. All right, so Elijah Moore goes. Javonte Williams, really sad to see his fall from grace. I hope he can do something before the end of 2023. I'm not taking him in best ball, no way, because that injury he had was pretty gruesome. I don't think he's going to have a good year, but he could have, a late season resurgence. He could be a league winner for anyone that takes him and does make it to the tournament. But I think over the first half of the season, at least, probably a wasted pick. Like if I'm going to go for a Denver running back, I'm going to wait a round and a half and take Samaje Perine instead of Javonte. Alvin Kamara, 97. That's fine. I mean, if Kamara doesn't get a suspension, Kamara is going to be arguably the steal of everyone's draft. But we are, I think, about 6 weeks away from that trial starting, and God only knows what's going to happen. As a Panthers fan, I'm fine with Kamara getting suspended, right? I've seen him run wild on my team one too many times. Zach Charbonnet going at 99. I like that. I think Charbonnet deserves to be going at least in the top 100 here, maybe even a little bit earlier, maybe even in the top 90. Charbonnet should still have a good year. I know Kenny Walker's there. I know they're going to be splitting carries, and it's a total headache on whatever running back you're rooting for. But I think both of them are going to perform better than everyone thinks. So we're up in 5 picks. We still don't have a tight end. Freiermuth, he's not my guy. He's not my guy because as I scroll down the list, Chiggy Okonkwo, Dalton Schultz, Cole Kmet, Tyler Higbee. I mean, that's the tier that I go when I miss out on an elite level tight end. Tyler Higbee is actually one of my favorite guys that I go with. I mean, aside from Cooper Kupp, who's Matt Stafford throwing the ball to? Exactly. Rhetorical question. I'm answering myself. But that's the thing. Like, Tyler Higbee is going to have a big year if he's healthy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And if Matt Stafford isn't healthy, who's throwing the ball? Doesn't matter. They're going to check it down to the tight end. They're going to rely on Cooper Kupp. So, like I said, I'm not going to take Pat Freiermuth here. I could take Alan Lazard, but I don't think I want another Jet. Now, Odell Beckham Jr. is an interesting play here because he's definitely going to have some spike weeks in Baltimore. James Cook is safe. Like I said, Perine, I don't mind going with him. You know what? Let's do this. We're going to take Samaje Perine here because I think that, like this blurb says, I think he is going to have a significant role in Denver. All 4 of my running backs, they have different bye weeks, 6, 7, 9, and 11. That's it. I think I'm done drafting running backs at this point. We're going to leave this draft with only 4 running backs. And the guy in front of me took back-to-back quarterbacks, so I still have my choice of all of the other guys that were on my board. Juju could be a safe option because he is a team's wide receiver 1. I don't really believe in Mac Jones or the New England Patriots, and there's also a lot of hype that they could go out and sign DeAndre Hopkins, which would obviously be very, very bad for Juju Smith-Schuster. So, you know what? We took Michael Thomas. Let's take Odell Beckham. We got to get lucky. One of them's got to work out, right? All right, skipping forward a little bit in the video. I promise you didn't miss anything. I did have to make an edit there. I just really had to be. I'm always transparent with my viewers here. let's see. So Alan Lazard did go. Juju did go. Damian Harris at 115. He is slowly creeping up draft boards. I think that by August, his ADP could be closer to 100 overall, I think. Because Buffalo, I mean, do we really think Buffalo is going to commit to James Cook? Like, I think James Cook is going to have a good year. I think he's going to be the running back to own in Buffalo. But Damian Harris is just so much cheaper. And I think he's going to score the most touchdowns. If we're not counting Josh Allen, I think Damian Harris will have the most rushing touchdowns on that team. Not a lot of upside as a PPR guy. I think Damian Harris has like 30 receptions or something like that total over the course of his many years in the league here. Doesn't catch a lot of balls, doesn't get a lot of targets, but still a lot to like. Plenty of worse things than grabbing a guy on that Buffalo offense. So little run on quarterbacks here. Rodgers, Danny Jones goes. Now Devon Achane, I think he should go. I think he should be gone by now. People are really convincing themselves that Dalvin Cook is already in Miami, and he's not. And if Dalvin Cook doesn't land in Miami, Devon Achane should be the guy there this year. Now, I'm not going to call him a workhorse, but I do think that he'll have the majority of the touches in that backfield. And there he goes. Pick number 122 overall. Khalil Herbert, that's a guy I'm staying away from this year. There's Roshan Johnson. There's Deontay Foreman. Khalil Herbert was very efficient when he ran the ball last year, but Foreman is a better bruising back. I think Roshan is a better do-it-all back. I think if there's going to be an odd man out by the end of 2023, it's going to be Khalil Herbert. He could be an early favorite to be on the field, but I think by the end of 2023, he's going to be an afterthought for the Chicago Bears. So I still need a tight end, and I'm really debating going back-to-back tight ends here because this is the area that I do like. Now, obviously, I'm not taking a running back. I don't think I want to take Dalton Kincaid. I know some people believe in him, but I'm just going to follow the trend and say there's been like 5 rookie tight ends ever that finish as a top 10 tight end in their rookie season. And I don't think I really want to bank on Dalton Kincaid to do that. I like Chiggy. I do like Russell Wilson, but I'm not going to take my QB2 before I take my first tight end here. Romeo Doubs, there is a decent amount to like about him. I think for the reasons why I don't like Christian Watson, I do like Doubs because I can get Doubs in round 11, or I would have to spend a round 4 pick on Christian Watson. Rashee Rice is interesting, but not going to put a lot of stock there. Yeah, I think we're going to go back-to-back tight end. And I think with this first one, I'm going to take Jiggy just since he's at the top of the ADP here. And, if the guy, never mind, Jiggy just went. So never mind. We're not going to go back-to-back tight ends. I'm going to queue up Tyler Higbee just in case we run out of time here because Higbee's going to be one of my 2 picks. You know what? Yeah, let's take Doubs. Let's take Doubs because he could be the highest targeted receiver in Green Bay this year. I don't think anyone would be surprised by that. I think a lot of people think it's going to be Christian Watson, but I mean, Doubs is pretty good. Time last year, he was the darling of OTAs, training camps, and he skyrocketed up draft boards. So I'm fine with having him as my wide receiver 6 there. And now we're going to take my first tight end. I know it's a reach. It's a reach by about 14 picks according to the ADP, but I don't care. I think Tyler Higbee, like I said, I can't imagine a world where Tyler Higbee is not a top 10 tight end in 2023. Like the only way that that's not possible is if he gets hurt. It's the only thing that's going to keep him away from being a top 10 tight end. And he has spike weeks. We love a good spike week. So now we're not up for another 20 picks. Just kind of take a look at what is on the board here and what we might be able to expect in 20 picks. So I'm assuming the board's going to be about right here, starting with MVS. And MVS, he's always on my short list to draft in round 13 or 14 in my best ball. And there's probably only going to be 3, maybe 4 weeks where MVS does anything in 2023. But the 3 or 4 weeks where he does, he's going to make his way into my starting lineup. I can guarantee that. He has spike weeks. There's going to be weeks where he has 2, maybe even 3 touchdowns in a single week. And I mean, Pat Mahomes, we've seen him do it before, right? Pat Mahomes throws a bajillion touchdowns. He's going to throw a bajillion more touchdowns in 2023. Someone's got to catch him. And MVS, outside of Travis Kelce, MVS is Pat Mahomes' most senior receiver this year. So just kind of something to think about. Now, one guy that I'm out on in that Kansas City offense is Kadarius Toney. There's no shot I'm spending his round 4, round 5 ADP. No shot. Since he's entered the NFL, he's had like 3 good fantasy games ever. He's hurt. He, obviously not with the Chiefs, but when he was with the Giants, he was having off the field problems and not getting along with the coaches and this and that. He's just a headache I try to avoid. At least at his cost. If he went down to maybe round 6 or round 7, then yeah, I'd be in. But too much risk with where you have to draft him. So Tank Bigsby goes at 142. Tank Bigsby is an interesting one. A lot of people think he's just going to be the short yardage back, and it's definitely possible. But I think he's going to beat out ETN for goal line work. I think he's going to beat out ETN in those short yardage situations. And I think he is going to be, just in general, more of a thorn in ETN's side than a lot of people want to admit. And ETN, I mean, we've seen him get hurt before. He's not impervious to injuries. Tank Bigsby could be a league winner if something were to happen to ETN. And I'm going to go back and saying, I'm not going to be the guy that's going out there and projecting injuries. I won't pretend to know the future like that. But Tank Bigsby at cost, with the running back that's in front of him, with the injuries that he has had along the way, there's worse bets to make than using pick 142 overall in Tank Bigsby. So if you are someone that punted the running back position and you did go wide receiver, early, I'm cool with taking Tank Bigsby as a flyer. But see, I bring up Tank Bigsby. Here comes those other guys I mentioned earlier. Jalen Warren, Roshan Johnson, Tyler Algier. I mean, I've seen some rosters out there where these guys are the RB3, maybe even the RB2. And, if one of these guys is your RB2, you got a pretty strong roster around it. You can kind of make up for what you're missing in the running back. But if all of your running backs are scratch-off lottery cards, you could really get screwed on those bye weeks. And even just having one bye week where 1 or 2 of your guys get you less than 5 points, I mean, there goes your tournament. You're not making the tournament. All right, so we're up in 3 picks. We got a little bit of everything on the roster. Gerald Everett. I keep stacking up the Chargers, but I'm kind of fine with it. Week 5, we're going to struggle to find some points, but we are making up for it elsewhere. I think I am going to take Gerald Everett if he's there. Gerald Everett is going to have spike weeks, and again, it's just another stack. Now, whenever a pass is completed from Justin Herbert, I won't get points for Eckler. I won't get points for Mike Williams. But all 3 of the other guys are getting me points. So we're going to take Gerald Everett here if he's there. And he is. Now, I'm going to risk it because I do really want Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I do want MVS very badly. Let's see. Let's take a look at this guy's team. You know what? He has George Kittle. I think he's going to wait on tight end. We're going to take MVS. We're going to take the risk and see if we can get Gerald Everett on the way back. Let's see. Don't take him because I have no contingency plan. All right. Gerald Everett. There he goes. Okay. Well, a miscalculation on my end, but it is what it is. Oh, shoot. Okay. Well, that's why we play the game. We love it, don't we? Unreal. So you know what I am going to do? I know I said I'm not going to take any more running backs, but I have Bijan Robinson. And, oh, my goodness, he took Everett and Algier. You have got to be kidding me. Oh, this guy. Nutter Butter 13. You are the bane of my existence. Holy hell. All right, well, let's just take a guy with boom bust appeal. We're going to take Jalen Hyatt. Biletnikoff winner. I like him a lot. I am taking him at ADP in rookie drafts. The Giants, it's a wide open battle in the wide receiver room. So why not? I think by the end of the season, he'll be catching long balls. He'll replace what we've seen from Darius Slayton, and I think he will be better than Darius Slayton at what he does. So whatever. I'm not very happy about that because I miscalculated. I thought I was going to get Everett. Could have fallen back on Algier. He went both of them. This is not a live stream, so I know he's not watching me. Ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. But it's how the cookie crumbles in best ball. So we have 8 wide receivers, 4 running backs, 1 quarterback, 1 tight end. I should probably stop taking wide receivers. We have 4 picks left. I still need at least 1 more quarterback. I still need at least 1 more tight end. Now, here's my thing. I'll probably go with 3 tight ends, but I'm more than likely only going to take 2 quarterbacks. Reason being is if I take a quarterback in the top, 5 rounds, which I took Justin Herbert, pick 59. If I take a quarterback that early, I'm telling the board that this is my quarterback that I plan on having in there every single week except for his bye week. So to stay consistent with that, I'm going to bet on him being very good this year, and I'm not going to take a 3rd quarterback. It's risky, 100%. It's risky because if something happens to one of my quarterbacks, I'm screwed. But I mean, in best ball, if something happens to your 4th or 5th round pick anyway, you're probably screwed because you need perfection from your best ball team to beat out hundreds of thousands of other people. So whenever I do best ball, I draft with nothing but the upside ceiling in my head, thinking that this team is going to go over perfectly because it has to, right? So you just draft a team where if the perfect scenario happens, it's awesome. You will never catch me drafting a safe best ball team. I do not play this game just to make the tournament. I don't play this game just to have a few wins along the way. You play it to win, right? Dynasty, completely different story. Then we'll talk about not being super risky with every single pick we take, but best ball, you got to do it. Okay, so Kyler Murray's still on the board. He's officially fallen past his ADP. Kyler Murray's not a guy I'm taking in redraft or best ball. There is no signs of him returning in the first half of the season. Their bye week is week 14. By then, I mean, even by week 10, Arizona's probably going to be out of playoff contention. I can see 2023 being a full rest year for Kyler Murray. There's absolutely no reason to put him on the field if Arizona doesn't have any sort of chance of making the playoffs, and I really don't think they will. Unless he makes a miraculous recovery and he's back in like week 4 or week 5, he's not worth taking a flyer on. I mean, if he's still there in round 17 or 18, yeah, sure. He could be the league winner, right, that I'm talking about. But there's almost no scenario where he plays the first half of the season. There's almost no scenario where he gets on the field before week 15, in my opinion. And I know that's perfect timing for the tournament, but I don't know. It's not the pick that I'm making personally. And the pick that I was going to take was going to be Bryce Young. You win some, you lose some there. Looking at the board right now, I guess I'm going a little bit further here. Because I need a quarterback that's going to be solid enough for week 5. Could be CJ Stroud. I'm going to queue him up. He'll be my fallback option here. I do like Isaiah Hodgins, but I think 8 wide receivers is about where you can cap out at. I don't think I need anything more than that. Let's see. What's this note on Sam Laporta? It won't show me. It won't show me the note. You know what? Let's take Sam Laporta. Why not? A lot of targets to go around in Detroit. Jameson Williams out for the first 6 weeks. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown, you could argue Sam Laporta is, I mean, I know he's a tight end, but you could argue that he is the wide receiver too there until Jameson Williams comes back, because the only other guy is really Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones is what? Old. I don't think we have to worry about Marvin Jones putting up too many big weeks. Plus, Sam Laporta is just my backup guy here. Tyler Higbee is going to be the one that I'm using on a weekly basis. Now, the quarterbacks that are left, like I said, I'm not taking Kyler Murray. CJ Stroud is going to be my next pick here. And if this guy takes him, then he's bugged my room. He has to know. But I'm taking CJ Stroud because he's the only guy on this list that I'm looking at. And I'm like, yeah, I could be okay with him spot starting for me in week 5. Trey Lance, I would like, and I will consider him as my QB3. But with the early bye week for Justin Herbert, I need to draft a guy that I know is going to be available in week 5. And CJ Stroud, look, he's already working with the first unit. Mandatory minicamp started, and he's going to be the day one starter there. He's not going to lose to Davis Mill in the quote unquote camp quarterback battle. So Kyler Murray finally goes at 183. Finally stop looking at him on the board. Now, admittedly, not my favorite team I ever drafted. Not my favorite team. A couple of miscalculations along the way, but that's why we have so many best ball teams, right? Because you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. So we got 2 picks remaining, and I already said I'm not taking a third quarterback. So CJ Stroud and Justin Herbert, it is risky, very risky, especially since CJ Stroud is a rookie. But Justin Herbert should outscore Stroud in every single week. Justin Herbert is going to outscore all of these guys that are available: Trey Lance, Sam Howell, Mac Jones, Desmond Ridder. Herbert's going to outscore them every week that is in week 5. So there's no reason. There's no reason to take another one. So I'm thinking I'm going to wrap this up with a 3rd tight end and a 5th running back. So the tight ends, kind of a dime a dozen at this point. I really like Trey McBride. I think Hayden Hurst has a promising year in Carolina. Michael Mayer could be a, late season bloomer. But if I miss out on these 3 guys, I'm fine to pivot to any of these other guys, really. So let's look at running back. We're up in 12 picks. There's a few names on here that could do a thing or two for me. Gus Edwards, for example. Not going to be many big weeks, but that Baltimore running back room is cursed. They're cursed to no end, and someone's got to stay healthy this year. And Gus Edwards, when he is healthy, is not available for me anymore, so it doesn't even matter. But I like Gus Edwards in the 16th or 17th round, because I think he has just as much of a chance as J.K. Dobbins to be the lead back. I know that's kind of a hot take, but J.K. Dobbins is not significantly better than Gus Edwards, whether you want to admit it or not. He's not. And J.K. Dobbins is always hurt, so that kind of helps too. Oh, man, I really don't like just about any of the running backs on here. Izzy Abanaconda, I never can say his last name correctly. He's interesting because Breece Hall could potentially miss some time at the beginning of the year, or at the very least, he could be splitting time with Breece Hall at the beginning of the year. Michael Carter, same case scenario. Michael Carter is more for PPR there, I guess you could say. Kareem Hunt should sign somewhere, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he didn't. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, just disappointing all the way around. If they didn't re-sign Jerick McKinnon, I could be convinced to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire as my RB5. But they re-signed Jerick McKinnon. Isaiah Pacheco had a good year last year, so not really on my board and not available for me anyway. So at the risk of being very bold here, if he's here, I'm going to take Dwayne McBride. Day 3 rookie, going to Minnesota. I don't think any of us would be surprised if Alexander Mattison doesn't have a workhorse role. I think I would be more surprised if Mattison is a workhorse than if he weren't a workhorse. And I think Dwayne McBride, I think he's going to play his way up the depth chart. And I think that he could emerge as the RB2. And apparently so does this guy, because you have got to be kidding me right now. Well, you know what? Let's just to make sure we get our tight end, let's take one of these guys. So we got a bye week 10, a bye week 9, so it doesn't really matter. I like any of these three guys, but if I'm going to bet on one of them to be the higher scorer, we'll take Michael Mayer. We were talking about Michael Mayer for the last year, maybe even 2 years in Dynasty formats, saying that he was going to be a league-breaking tight end. He was one of the reasons why we were trading for 2023 picks. We did all of this just to let Dalton Kincaid chatter take over. No. Michael Mayer is still my tight end to own out of the rookie class in 2023. He could be a late-round emerger for me. Not counting on it, but wouldn't be surprised. And we're back up. Really just don't like what we've got going on here, but I think Zach Evans is kind of a gift here. Not a gift, maybe the wrong word. Zach Evans is going to be my last pick. I was kind of alluding earlier, I don't think Cam Akers is going to make it through the 2023 season. I think Zach Evans is actually a halfway decent running back. And I think he will be pretty good in the NFL. So he'll more than likely be a change of pace guy in LA. But I also don't think anyone would be surprised if Cam Akers gets hurt again, or if he just kind of fades a little bit, right? Because he had that Achilles injury. And to this date, I mean, James Robinson just got waived despite coming back and playing at least a little bit decent afterwards. Cam Akers played a little bit decent afterwards, and now we don't know what's coming up. Deontay Foreman, Achilles injury, took him a while to get things going again. Had a solid end of the year in Carolina, but really not much doing prior to that, right? So I liked Cam Akers at one point, but I just can't really get on board. Projected 2,548. Now I can promise you we're going to be one of the bottom teams in the projections. I can guarantee that. But in my opinion, and I finished up a draft earlier. I had a score of, it was 2,980. And it was the highest score in the draft room. I did really like the team. I like that team more than I like this one. But I will say I have so many teams where the projection is in the 25 or 2600s. And those are some of my favorite rosters. Because again, I don't draft my team for safety. I don't go for the guys that are going to guarantee me a certain amount of points each week. I go for the guys where when you mix them all together, at least a few of them each week is absolutely hitting, right? I don't need any consistency on a best ball roster. The only consistency that I need is for just a handful of my players. I don't care which ones they are, just a handful of them to have a good week. And I think we have a pretty good balance here. So the draft is complete in 3, 2, 1. Mr. Irrelevant pick is, all right, doesn't want to tell us. But let's take a look at this draft before we wrap up the video here. So quarterback room, Justin Herbert and C.J. Stroud, perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. I like I said, I'm not concerned about not having a QB3 because even by the time we're in round 10 or 11, what quarterback is going to have more points for me on a week-to-week basis than Justin Herbert? Probably no one. So if you're going to take a quarterback in the first 5 or 6 rounds, I think you only need to leave the draft with 2. You can be a little risky there. Running back room, only 5 of them. Only 5 running backs, but I'm content with that. Bijan Robinson, he's projecting out to be a top 5 running back as a rookie, right? And Bijan Robinson he's going to be a first-round pick in like every redraft league this year. So I'm very happy that I got him at pick 11. Najee Harris at 35. I think his ADP is going to creep up. I think once he starts getting hype in training camp, once the stories come out, oh, Najee Harris looking like his old self again. I think once that starts to happen, he's going to creep up into the early, I would say early 3rd round, maybe even late 2nd round ADP. I really won't be surprised. If you don't believe me, look at Najee Harris's stat line last year. First half of the season, like RB 30 or 40 overall, not good. Second half of the season, RB5, right? From I think it's week 10 to week 18, Najee Harris was the overall RB5. He's going to make a comeback this year. I guarantee it. And then Miles Sanders, I think Miles Sanders has the best chance of being this year's Josh Jacobs. So if I can have a rebounding Najee Harris, this year's Josh Jacobs, and Bijan Robinson as my leading running backs, I'm pretty stoked about that. The obvious weak spot, tight end room, I'm not really going to get into that. I talked about each one of these guys. Maybe one of my rookies will hit, maybe not, but whatever. I think Tyler Higbee is going to be good enough. He's going to offer me enough spike weeks. It's fine. We didn't get an elite tight end. I do like getting an elite tight end in best balls, but you win some, you lose some. But this wide receiver room. So before we wrap up, my thoughts on this. Garrett Wilson, every week starter. Going to be, 15-point minimum, and he could put up 25, 30 points in a week. No one's going to be surprised. Keenan Allen, if he's healthy, same boat. Same boat. If you disagree with me that Keenan Allen is, at worst, wide receiver 15 on a week-to-week basis when he's healthy, you're just looking for a fight at that point if you don't agree with that. Like, that's just fact. Then I got Quentin Johnston. I think that by the end of the year, he'll overtake Mike Williams as the, quote unquote wide receiver 2 there. I think Quentin Johnston is a boomer bust prospect, and I'm perfectly fine with taking a boomer bust prospect in my best ball leagues. The cool thing with QJ is I think he hits his stride later on in the season, where when I look at Michael Thomas and Odell Beckham, those are my early season wide receivers. They're obviously both big injury risks. They're both 30 years old. They both have the extensive injury history. But if they're going to put together solid games, it's going to be between, weeks 1 and 5 or 6. And I think by then QJ will hit his stride. So I think there's enough there to fill in. And if Michael Thomas and OBJ, even if just one of them stays healthy, they're going to offer, I would say, at least wide receiver 2 upside each week. So I'm cool with that. Romeo Doubs, he could be a PPR monster. Like I said, he could have the highest target total in Green Bay this year, and I don't think any of us would really be surprised. MVS, I have those spike weeks. Jalen Hyatt is, kind of just the rookie version of MVS. Jalen Hyatt, I don't think he gets enough credit, especially in dynasty formats. I mean, I'm not comparing him to Deshaun Jackson, but think about Deshaun Jackson many years ago, right? You would put him in your lineup, and yeah, he'd be a little frustrating here and there because he'd get you 6, maybe 7 points. But there were some weeks where, man, he would go off and he would have, 30 points minimum. And Jalen Hyatt is that home run hitter. Again, I'm not comparing him to Deshaun Jackson, but he could offer Deshaun Jackson upside in a best ball lineup. So, again, not my favorite roster I've ever drafted here on best ball, but not my least favorite either. I really just try not to pay attention to the projections too much because I do go all ceiling, no floor. I don't care about floor in best ball because as far as I'm concerned, if this team doesn't finish top 5 in the country, right, it's a lose. It's a loss, right? So like Ricky Bobby once said, you're either first or you're last. And that's going to do it for me here on Goal Line Dynasty. If you enjoyed this, let me know. If you want to ridicule my team, that's perfectly fine. Let me know as well. So hit those comments, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And if you don't want to miss a video whenever we post, hit that bell icon as well to get those notifications whenever Tyler and I post. I know obviously Tyler is not in this video, but he is in every other video on the channel, right? So that's going to do it. See you next time.